I love to people please. And I people pleased so much that I almost passed out at a grocery store, that I was saying yes to everyone and not saying yes to myself. And that's a constant thing I have to be aware of every single day. And I still slip up on saying yes, because all of us, we're looking for that external validation of, I need to be liked, I need to be loved, I need to be approved of. And when I have the shift of, if I don't love myself first, if I don't approve of myself first, if I don't accept myself first, I'm going to slip up again. And my pattern will be to say yes to everything.
You're listening to The Creative Imposter, episode number 26. Thank you for joining me for The Creative Imposter. I'm Andrea Klunder, and today I'm sharing a conversation I had with Isabelle Rizo, who is the creator of The Singularity Circle, a community mastermind of creative entrepreneurs who have embraced the feminine approach to business and support each other through all the twists and turns to bring our personal story, our inner emotional world, our outer productive world, and our digital presence into alignment. Whew, that was a mouthful. I actually had to record that like 5 times before I got it right. I joined the Singularity Circle in July of 2016, and working with Isabelle and the other members has really helped me focus in on what it is I'm doing with this podcast, with the Creative Imposter Facebook group, you're in it, right? And the local community I've been building, the Chicago Women's Creative Collective. And they have helped keep me accountable for thinking bigger, expanding what's possible, and holding true to the vision. In this episode, Isabelle and I talk about her unusual path to get where she is right now in her business, the dangers of people-pleasing and the freedom of quitting, what it's like to be a woman in a man's world, the tech industry, how to take a more feminine approach to entrepreneurship while honoring the masculine side, and we take an in-depth look at poop, the psychological kind. You'll get it. And before we do that, I want to thank our sponsored partners. No, don't skip forward. You're going to want to hear this. Betsy Bash, Social Media Consulting. Wow. Founder Lauren Ramsey just facilitated a workshop for the Chicago Women's Creative Collective on how to treat your social media strategy like a party and create content in a fun, engaging way. It was incredible, and I'm looking at the formerly dreaded task of posting on Facebook to promote my brand in a whole new way. Are you in Chicago? Great. Lauren is going to be offering more group opportunities like this one through the Chicago Women's Creative Collective. Not in Chicago? Great. An online version is coming soon, and I will keep you posted. In the meantime, wherever you are, if you need some fresh perspective on your social media, Lauren is offering listeners of The Creative Imposter a free 30-minute social media strategy consultation. Please take advantage of this. You will be amazed and delighted with what her brain comes up with. Just go to thecreativeimposter.com/Betsy Bash to schedule your call. And of course, I'll include that in the show notes for this episode, thecreativeimposter.com/026. This episode is also sponsored by our New Orleans Creative Space Retreat. This winter, I am piecing out of my daily routine and spending some time in one of the most eclectic cities in the world, and I want to take you with me. In my conversation with Isabelle, we talk about the importance, the necessity of play to fill you up with creative inspiration and energy, and this is your opportunity. There is no better playground than New Orleans, Louisiana, especially with me as your guide. VIP pricing is available through December 1st, and there are only 8 spots left. Ready to explore the possibility? Head over to thecreativeimposter.com/NOLA and get on the VIP list. And now, without any further ado, Isabelle Rizo tells us what it means to be a singularity storyteller.
I'm currently a singularity storyteller, consultant, and artist. And what I basically do is I unveil to people who they really are and get clear on their story, craft their story together with them so that they can know that internally have that manifest externally in their real life and align that with their online presence. Because a lot of people think I have to pretend to be someone externally with how I dress, the brands I wear, the money I have, when internally they're still struggling, or they're not loving themselves, or they're not very clear about their own wants and desires. So I work together with them to craft their story. And then the second part of that is I connect them to the people that need their story, or they desire somebody in their life that can support them in that way. It's almost like a sales funnel, but a human sales funnel.
When you talk about helping people craft their story, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about what that means. Because I know sometimes when I'm talking with colleagues or community members or potential clients, I'll hear people say, well, I don't really have a story. I don't really have anything interesting that happened in my life or any big story to tell.
So I tell them first off that they are interesting, they're alive, they're a human being. So that in itself is like, boom, let's just understand that's an amazing miracle. And from there, the current business that they're doing, or their artwork, or whatever is another form of expressing themselves in the world, they've gotten to that place somehow, somewhere. So whether it may be going through some kind of pain or struggle and they've overcome it and now they help others with it, which is usually the case for entrepreneurs, or they see a need in an industry and they have a little bit of a background in it and they're now serving that need in the world. They've gotten to that place somehow. You don't wake up one morning and you say, I'm a businessman that's a millionaire and I help other, international filmmakers get seen and win awards at Cannes and Tribeca. You don't wake up that way. Most likely his story or her story is they've been a filmmaker and they've struggled through all of the film process and submitting films that were near and dear to their hearts to Tribeca and Cannes and all these other big things. And they failed and they failed again, they failed again. But then they actually got somewhere and they started earning a living and something shifted in them. And now learning that and sharing that story, because that's the story, right, invites people into their world to say, I'm like you, and here's how I can help you.
So it's about finding those things that are so unique to your history and what you've done and experienced, and the pain points that you've had and the struggles that you've had and the successes and celebrations that you've had. And in the specificity of your own experience, other people can see themselves or can connect with that experience and feel a connection to you.
Exactly it. And from that point, once you're clear on your story, you can build an audience if that's something you want. You can sell a product. You can invite people to engage in a service that you offer. And it's not playing off of their pain points and manipulating them to purchase from you. It's from you already seeing them as the empowered person they are and sharing with them the potential that you see with them, because you were once them and now you can help lift them up.
How long have you been doing this?
Officially singularity storytelling since summer of 2015. I've been involved in online space personal development work, digital marketing, growth hacking, and everything, blogging, for 8 years, since 2008.
So in 2008, what were you doing? What did your business look like then?
I had a rinky-dink blogspot blog, and I was collecting people's stories. And I did not have a vision of being a singularity storyteller. All I knew was I just liked blogging and interviewing interesting people. So I interviewed people like Jason Silva, Ashley Ferrand, a few other people that were graphic designers, artists, scientists. And I'm like, how did you get to where you are? And that's the story stuff, right? It's like the how, like share your process, your ups and downs. Because what people see are just, they always look like they had everything together. What you don't see is the 8 years behind that were uncomfortable, painful, traumatic, stressful, anxiety-filled to get to where they were. And the thing is, once you share that story with others, you can help them avoid all that struggle and that pain and all that, because then you make yourself human instead of this perfect brand or perfect vision of somebody, because nobody is that.
Right. And yet I resonate with what you said about seeing sort of the polished, finished product, especially for people that you admire. And I think that is part of why I wanted to start this podcast and why I had this inquiry into the idea of authenticity, into success, into the feeling of being an imposter, because I wanted to talk to people who I admired, who, when I look at them, I think, wow, they're so confident. They always present themselves in a certain way and they just go after what they want. And according to social media, it looks like they always get it too. Right?
Yes.
If my Facebook feed is true, it means that this person is living this charmed life. And I might have an initial reaction of like, man, how come I can't do, how come I can't do that? Or how come I feel like I'm always struggling? And here's this other person over here who is just like gliding through life, like doing all these amazing things. And yet sometimes I've had feedback from people who I know who look at my social media Facebook feed and they're like, wow, you're doing all of these amazing things. How are you so successful? And inside I'm feeling like the hugest imposter, like the hugest failure.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how even when you don't intend to project that, sometimes you do. And so when you started collecting these stories and you started interviewing people, did you already know that that was the case, that everyone had a story of struggle or of heartbreak or climbing their way to where they are? Or was that surprising to you?
No, I knew everybody had poop. And this is why when I would go to conferences, I would be so pissed off because they would just share the glitz and the glamour. And I'm like, no. Let's backtrack here. How did you really get to where you are? And then we had complex conversations, right? About privilege, about your background, about your conditioning, about things that were an advantage to you or they were a disadvantage to you. Like, let's look at them. And I'm not saying that because you're from a certain background or from something, you are more apt to do whatever. Like, I truly believe that no matter what background, what trauma, what conditioning you are brought up in, you can shift that and you can become successful. I wanted to bring that to light.
So you took a totally different path than what might have been the status quo or the expected path, like the whole go to college, get a degree, and then start a job.
So I went from high school and I decided, I was like, oh, okay, since sophomore year, I knew I was going to go to this one university and study international relations and social justice. I get the bill for $20,000 plus $10,000 for room and board and all these other things. And I'm like, that's how many plane tickets? All I knew for certain that I wanted was to travel and help people. I didn't know how. I didn't know what that would look like. I was just like, that is what I'm clear on. Those are my two clearest desires that I have right now. And then I opened myself to the opportunities that came towards travel and helping people. From there, I had a really good friend from high school that she said, do you want to come out to China? And we're doing this program and we're doing cultural exchanges. And I joked with her. I said, I took 4 years of French, not Chinese. And she says, oh, no, just come out. And then for a whole year behind the scenes while I was at college, we worked behind the scenes to do fundraising and PR and gather volunteers to come out and do this cultural exchange program in Yunnan in southern China. So things just started evolving in that space. And I was like, the travel opportunity came up, the helping people opportunity came up, and school was more in the way of my desires. And it was more blocking my desires that I said, I'm going to let this go.
Yeah, there's so much that we could talk about with higher education and the future of learning. And I know you're really into futuristic stuff, but I don't want to go that route.
Yes.
Not for this conversation. Maybe that'll be part 2. But you approached me at Nikki Neagle's About Women talk because obviously from me standing up and talking for 3 minutes, you saw a commonality or something that you could connect to that you thought, we might be able to collaborate or work together. And I've been watching your Facebook Live videos, and You come across as so confident and you speak with such clarity. But since you brought this up a moment ago, we have to talk about your poop a little bit.
Yeah, we can talk about my poop. We can totally talk about my poop.
So, so you have this exterior of being really bold and taking these risks and thinking outside of the box. But beneath the surface, where do you struggle, or what resonates with you about this idea of imposter syndrome?
I think for me, and I've been working with this because behind all the confidence is an army of women. I have a mindset coach. I have a mentor I work with. I have a kinesiologist. I have acupuncturists that I work with, aromatherapists and Reiki practitioners. So that definitely helps. And also therapy. It's a wonderful thing. So I have all of these supports I put into my life that I know that without them, I would not be able to exude and stay true to my intention, because it's very easy to wobble out of my intention of the thoughts of who am I to be talking about this? I'm a woman in the tech scene. It's 80% men, 20% women, 20%, maybe 10% if we're lucky. And the thing that I would always be approached with, the energy that I would attract, would be, oh, here's this cute little girl that does social media and she's awesome. You know, she could help you, but it's just like a little side thing. You know, it's really cute. And I'm like, you know what? No, because I love to people please. And I people pleased so much that I almost passed out at a grocery store, that I was saying yes to everyone and not saying yes to myself. And that's a constant thing I have to be aware of every single day. And I still slip up on saying yes because I want to be, again, right, that external validation. Because all of us, we're looking for that external validation of, I need to be liked, I need to be loved, I need to be approved of. And when I have this shift, and this is, I always have to do my mindset work in the morning. If I don't do it, then I wobble. Of, if I don't love myself first, if I don't approve of myself first, if I don't accept myself first, I'm going to slip up again. And my pattern will be to say yes to everything and not put up boundaries. Boundaries is another thing that I feel I sometimes struggle with, because I love to help and I love the potential in everyone and I see the potential in everyone and I want to control their life. So my thing is I have to learn to step back and allow that person to take control of their life, and I just guide them by me being me instead of me telling them what to do. Because that's very easy for me. But then people end up resenting you, right? It's like, she keeps telling me what to do. I'm like, I can do my stuff my own way. Instead of allowing people to evolve at their own pace. And I just hold space for them and I nudge them or guide them to say, hey, remember, this is what you wanted. This is what you're paying me for to keep you accountable for. This is what you're wanting. Right? So that's the thing with boundaries too. And overworking. My pattern is to bury myself in work when I don't want to deal with my emotions. I had an EFT call with my mentor and we went into like the deep poop stuff, the self-hatred, the loathing, the fear, the scarcity, operating from scarcity, the neediness. And it was like a really good crying set, like crying boogers, the whole thing, the whole poop, right? And then she said, okay, what you have to do today is you have to go play. And I'm working right now on a series of art for an exhibit I'll be doing next year. And the process of like, I have to go play, I don't play. That's my problem. I overwork, which I think is a really coping mechanism, but it's not healthy at all. So I bury myself in work, and then it's not conscious work. It's just busy work. And I'm like, why do I feel poopy at the end of the day? I could have just gone to the park and collected my sticks for the sculpture that I was doing. But no, I didn't do that. I did 5 hours of uninterrupted work where I forgot to eat. And then the next day, my body was like, nope, you're not getting out of bed. And I'm like, okay, I have to honor you, body. So that's a little bit of my poop. Would you like more?
Well, I want to pause for a moment or land for a moment on this idea of overworking. It's a theme that comes up over and over again. And I just had a conversation with a woman earlier this week for the podcast, Andrea Newberry, who's a fashion designer. And she brought up the exact same thing and how in this society and in our culture, it's like workaholism is an addiction that's actually supported and praised as opposed to like other addictions that exist. And I know for me, this idea of struggling over play is a huge struggle for me. I opened a yoga studio in 2008. That was my first business because I wanted to help people like release anxiety and de-stress and be happier.
Yes.
And I worked myself to death. I had that studio for 5 years, and by the end of 5 years, I was not taking care of myself. I was exhausted. I was financially strapped. I was mentally, emotionally strapped. And it's like the antithesis of what I was trying to offer to other people.
Yes, exactly.
I feel that when I was reading things about like being an entrepreneur and starting a business, it was almost like the advice that I was seeing or receiving at the time was you have to do long hours and you have to push through this period and you have to say no to social engagements and your friends are just going to have to understand and you have to, get it out there and get it done. And I really seriously thought that I was doing the right thing by working 12 hours a day and, 7 days a week and giving up social engagements and not sleeping. I thought that that was what I was supposed to do to become a successful entrepreneur. What was I listening to? Like, this is utter crap.
Yes. Can we just say that right now? Like, let's just declare that is crap. And I think that just like we were talking about schooling, and there's a certain culture around schooling, and if you follow the right thing and you get the right grades and you don't fail, you're a success. The same thing in entrepreneur culture. If you work hard, you sacrifice everything, you stay focused on your goals, and you burn the midnight oil, you are going to be a success. And I'm just going to call BS on that because it's still coming from, again, our societal conditioning of hustle, celebrating hustle until we die, and that is not okay. And it's also a very masculine way of working, which I want to honor both. So I'm not bashing masculinity right now. Masculinity is all about the output of things and the work, but not honoring the feminine, that internal, right? So honoring output, honoring input. Your input and your internal world is just as important, if not more, than your external world. That's why I say my mindset work in the morning is that inner work I'm doing for myself. Without that, I'll just be putting things out unconsciously, without strategy, without conscious intention behind it. And I'll seem like I'll feel like I'm productive and I'm busy, but I'm not bringing in the results I want. I'm not bringing in the clients I want. Because internally, it's just a reflection of what's going on externally, and that's going to be reflected in your online too. However, online, we can have a little bit more control of what we're tweaking, what we're not, and we want to only put the best foot forward. This is why I tell people, you might be a luxury brand, but we're going to talk about your poop too. We're going to acknowledge that they're both a reality. Like, yes, you are a luxury and you are high value, you have very high standards, but we also want to acknowledge that we're human and we make mistakes and failure is part of the thing. And we have a shadow part of ourselves and a light part of ourselves. That's what the world that we're playing in is, light and dark. And of course, playing in the gray area, that's where I like to play. And I'd like more entrepreneurs to stay in the gray area, but to have that kind of conversation in the gray takes a lot of inner work and responsibility of self, integrity of self. And that's something that I think each individual person, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, I think just in general as a human being, is something really important to cultivate within yourself. We never talk about emotions. You got to suck up your emotions at work, right? Like, stop crying. We need this deadline. It needs to be done. Instead of like, hold on, we need some space right now. What's going on? Why is this reaction happening? Let's analyze this in a non-judgmental way and say, hey, maybe we should evaluate how we're doing things. And most of the time, because we're all in output, 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 we don't go back and say, hey, now we have time to actually evaluate things, because that's what we say, right? It's like, once I'll be a millionaire, once I make enough money, once I'm on, I don't know how many podcasts, newspapers, and magazines, then I'll finally take care of myself. Then I'll finally, go on that vacation. But then never comes, because we're always moving towards this output, 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 because we get our validation from outside instead of letting it come from the inside out.
So let's do a little thought experiment.
Yes.
If the traditional model of entrepreneurship and starting your own business is so focused on this output-oriented, more masculine type of energy, what would a successful, more balanced model of entrepreneurship or business look like?
So I think, and I've been playing around with this to see, because I've always been for the last 8 years in the masculine. I was one of the guys, I was in the tech scene, I was one of the growth hackers. And now I'm reconnecting with like a feminine way of doing business and honoring what my body says and listening to my intuition. And if I have a gut feeling about somebody, like this doesn't feel good, listen to it. So I think for me, if it's a solopreneur or a company, is balancing both. Let's get clear on intentions. Let's see where everyone is at and how is everyone feeling. Like, imagine if companies asked, how are you feeling? And then from that space, then you get into that middle space of like, okay, here's what needs to be done. And here's the intention of why we're doing it, right? What's the story of why we're doing this? Enroll people into this story, engage them into this story so that they feel like they're a part of something greater than themselves. And then you all together move forwards towards output. And that's going to be, setting the date, setting the times, the deadlines, and things are going to come up. And then you're going to pivot, but you all have a discussion about like, why are we pivoting? Is this in alignment with our story that we created? Is this clear and decisive for our big why as a company? Or for the individual, is this in alignment with my big why, my big vision, or my big legacy that I want to leave behind for my life? And if it's not, then we're not going to pivot, and we're going to stick to our plan that we committed to ourselves. Because, right, I think we're seeing this thing like there's fear of commitment, especially we could say this in the dating world. There's all this fear of commitment because we haven't committed first to ourselves, to like take care of ourselves, to respect ourselves, to explore our own interests and our own strengths and what we're curious about. How in the world are we going to make commitments for our jobs, our relationships, how we're working in the world, how we're operating in the world, if we haven't done that first for ourselves?
And so you spoke of the mindset practices or mindset work that you do in the mornings to keep yourself on track.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what that entails?
Yes. So every morning I wake up at 6 a.m. and I do a meditation, and it could just be listening to a meditation on YouTube, or a lot of my clients actually make meditations, so I listen to my clients' meditations. And then I do my gratitude journal practice, which is grateful for 10 current things that are already in my reality and 10 things that I'm already grateful for that are not in my reality yet. But
Ooh.
yes, right? And then I already get into the headspace of, I already have this. I'm already so grateful for it. And you get into the space of like, whether I have it or not, I am still grateful. It comes from the inside out. And then from there, I do my yoga because I could just be in my head, right? So I'm like, wait a second, I'm a head attached to a body. Let me do some stretching. And then I'll have my breakfast and my tea. I just got coconut coffee, and it's vegan, and it's been really good. I'm not a coffee drinker, but this one is really good. And it's usually like fruit, toast, just something really light. I drink my lemon water in the morning to just get my digestive system going. And then I look at my calendar for the day and I say, okay, this is what is scheduled for today, and what else do I make room for? And I always have the intention now, especially for the next 3 months, I've made the intention for manifesting through ease of play. So inviting into my life ease doesn't mean it's easy, but I'm bringing in ease, and I'm allowing myself to play and do the things in my job and in my work that are so fun. And they allow me to play, because when I shift my energy into that, then I attract really cool clients. I attract people that are doing the work. I attract women and men that are very conscious. And it's my responsibility to do that, because otherwise I know it shows up in my business, it shows up in my life, it shows up in my finances, it shows up in my relationships. So it all starts again with me and taking personal responsibility for my life and my own mindset and my perception of how I'm viewing things.
And so what is coming up for you in your work, in your business, in your art that you're most excited about in the next few months?
Ooh, really excited for the upcoming speaking engagements that I'm doing. It's fun to speak online, but I love engaging with an audience offline as well. I'm excited about those speaking engagements and connecting with more women, like Nikki's group. Your group was amazing. Getting more involved here in the Chicago space. And I'm being very mindful to play more. So the playing and doing more art, I have no choice. I committed to an exhibit next year, so I have no choice. I have to do it. I have to play. So I'm excited about that. And what else? I'm manifesting, and I'm already grateful for. One of the women that is in the circle, she does styling, couture styling, and fashion photo shoots in Paris and in a few other parts of the US. And I've already done a photo shoot here in Chicago, which was amazing. But I feel like that photo shoot was a version of me that was from the past. And I'm in a different space now. And working with her feels really good to step into this new, confident, like, I really don't care if you get what I do or not space. Because if this was me like 2 years ago, I'd be like, oh my God, what do people think of me? No, they're going to think I'm a weirdo. And I'm like, nah, I just embraced it. I've embraced the singularity storyteller. I've embraced the futurist title. I've embraced the artist title. And some people will get it and some people won't. And that's okay. And that's a really, such a nice place to be in. So now I just got to show up that way, right? I got to align my real space with my online space. So I got to do what I teach.
And I have one last question for you, and that is, if someone is listening to this podcast, and by now I think I know that this is not a if someone is listening, but for
yes,
for the person who is listening to this podcast who has this idea of something that they want to start, or something that they want to try, or something new that might be a little outside of the box that they want to do, but their imposter voice is kicking in and saying, yeah, that'll never work, or you are not qualified to do that. What piece of advice or wisdom might you have for that person?
I would say, is this coming from this thing that you want to dabble in, or this new thing you want to try? Is it coming from your desires of what you want your life to look like? Or is it just something you're practicing to get out of your comfort zone? Because that's always a really great practice. I would say that imposter voice, listen to it, because that's your brain's way of keeping you safe and comfortable. And that's its job, right? That's why we have an amygdala. But say, thanks for sharing. And I know I'm feeling really afraid right now. I know I'm panicking right now. I know maybe I don't trust myself to do this and all this stuff. But you know what? I want to do this. So despite how I'm feeling, I'm going to acknowledge my feelings, right? We don't bury feelings. We don't suppress them. I'm going to acknowledge my feelings and say, okay, thanks for sharing, but I want to do this. And I'm going to sign up for this class. I'm going to work with this mentor. I'm going to go to this conference, and I'm going to have a good time. And then own it, right? Own it that, like, I chose this, and I'm going to deal with the consequences of it.
Isabelle Rizo of Singularity Storytelling. You can connect with Isabelle on Facebook. Join the Singularity Storytelling Facebook group, link, of course, in the show notes at thecreativeimposter.com/026. And while you're there, why don't you join the Creative Imposter Facebook group too? We have all kinds of resources and videos to help support you in your creative life and work. And between Isabelle's online community and mine, your newsfeed is going to be jam-packed, full of such great, inspiring content. Also, if you want a taste of what it's like to work with Isabelle, you can get her free 5-day storytelling challenge. That's what I did before signing up for the Circle. Head on over to thecreativeimposter.com/Isabelle to link. Thank you once again to our sponsors, Lauren Ramsey of Betsy Bash. Don't forget to schedule your free 30-minute social media strategy call with Lauren, and the Creative Space Retreat to New Orleans this winter with me. This episode was mixed by Edwin Ruiz of Mondo Machine. Theme music by Jovia Armstrong. I thank you for being a part of our community, and I hope you have a week filled with creative play.